Hey friends, you're watching BrainStormAcres. I'm Henry.
And I'm Irene.
We're in the kitchen.
Yeah.
What we're going to be doing today is first Irene's going to be sorting through some tomatoes we have. We have 7 bags of frozen tomatoes that came out of our deep freeze that we're going to have to check through because we had a friend watch our place while we were gone for an event. And all those tomatoes went in the freezer. So we double check all of those just to make sure we're not going to be putting something that's not ripe.
Right. Well, there's 2 things. We've had some problems with the cores on the tomatoes not quite ripening right. And if they don't produce much juice, so it's not going to affect the flavor that much. But it's really hard to get them through the processing machine, and you can kind of get it clogged up.
Yeah, it gets jammed up, which is what I do, and it makes it a mess trying to get it apart.
So it's way easier for me to go through with a paring knife and just clean that up. One of the reasons we're doing this is because this is a process that we do even when we're home. When we're home, I would sort the tomatoes, wash them, take any rotten spots out if there are any, because I can have a non-perfect tomato, but as long as I'm doing the cutting and the sniffing, then the stuff could go in there. And that also means that all that work is done before we get to this stage. When somebody else is doing it for me, I'm just happy to have the stuff thrown in the freezer so it doesn't spoil. But it means there's a little more prep work at this stage, and then this will all become tomato sauce and tomato powder and all that sort of stuff for use as an ingredient around here. But we don't produce like bushels at a time that we just sit down and have a massive thing. We are, however, getting ready for the holidays, so we want to have more space in the freezer, so we're kind of clearing out various spots around the house. Now, we did what I call a light clean in here this morning, so the countertops are clean. This area here where we actually be doing processing is clean. The stovetop is clean. It's not perfect, because why would I do that right before we're getting ready to splash tomato sauce over the floor?
We're gonna be boiling down the tomato juice and the pulp to make it into sauce, and that inevitably gets tomato someplace. And one of the reasons why I'm wearing this apron is because I have a long and storied history with tomato.
Right, well, he always gets tomato sauce on himself.
No matter what.
Right.
Many years ago, probably 40 years ago, I worked with a group of people in California. We went out to lunch, and it was the last lunch we were going to have when we were working at that particular company. And I said, I'm not going to order anything that has tomato on it. I was sitting at one end of the table, and my friend Larry was sitting at the other end of the table, and towards the end of the meal, he dropped his fork. And in a perfect arch, down the length of the table,
tomato sauce
landed
onto his pocket.
On my pocket. And that's where I typically gut tomato sauce. And I have no idea why, but it happened again. So this can be bleached,
right?
Which we'll do. Right.
And I swept the floor, but I did not mop it, because after we're done today, I'll be mopping the floor because you inevitably splurge. Sometimes when I just cut the knife, use the paring knife on the tomato, it'll squirt juice. So yeah, there'll be plenty of juice all over the kitchen when we're done, and us too.
Now, these tomatoes come from a mixture of tomatoes that we grew in hydroponics this year, and some that we grew in soil.
Right.
We've had similar problems with the tomatoes in both locations. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on. We haven't sorted all of that out. We'll figure it out eventually, maybe.
Yeah, well, it's hard to know how much is temperature, which obviously we have no control over, how much is fertilizer, which we do have something we control over. I'll be playing with varieties again next year too. Some tomatoes are more susceptible to it. It's just hard to grow tomatoes here. It is, because we get such exceptionally hot weather. Ideally, I would actually grow them in a heavy-duty cage outside in the yard. That would be the best way to grow them, because they'd be less susceptible to heat problems. Not unsusceptible, but less susceptible. And all those things, which we can't do that. I just don't have the energy and the time and the materials to build a giant cage.
Well, it is a real pain in the neck to build a cage over a tomato bed.
Basically it has to be to make it work right. It would need to be a cage greenhouse that you can walk into, and we just don't have that time or energy right now.
So, we'll get on with the tomato processing. I'm going to move you over to the other side so you can watch a little bit about what Irene's doing.
And we have one fly in here today. Just one. He showed up yesterday, and I haven't been able to kill him yet.
And it's been around 30 degrees at night. And,
So he's been hiding somewhere.
And it's been cold during the day until today.
Right. So he's more active this morning, and at some point he'll make a mistake, and you may see us chasing him around the room. So if you see someone chasing somebody with a fly swatter, that's what it is.
As long as it's a fly. She might trace me with a fly swatter.
Yeah, I
anyway.
might do that too, but you know. I have a pink fly swatter just for that purpose. So one of the things I just did was make an executive decision about what we're having for lunch. I have a couple of tomatoes here that are really nice and big and gorgeous and smell wonderful, and they're going to become BLTs, so lunch. But I cut off a soft spot on there and realized that the tomato was super perfect. I have three different groupings of tomatoes here. Some big ones up here, some small ones down here. A lot of these are paste tomatoes, so even though they don't look perfect or wonderful or anything, they'll be perfectly good for paste. And then we have a batch that's sitting in a cooler over here that has been defrosted from the freezer. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take off any soft spots. I'm going to sniff them. If they have an unripe core like that, I'm going to take that out so it doesn't clog up my tomato processor. Then I'm going to slice this into easy to use pieces that will go into the tomato processor. And when I get a whole stack of these, we'll get the tomato processor out of the pantry where it lives. And we will, I'm thinking about saving a couple of these perfect tomatoes. And we will, I've been feeling like BLTs lately, and we just got a new batch of bacon, so yeah. But this is a little paste tomato. So I'm going to cut off some of these cores because it'll just process easier. And this container that I'm putting stuff into is simply going to go into the compost heap. We don't really get compost out of here, but it does reduce the amount of trash, and especially gooey trash. We try and sort our trash into gooey and non-gooey. Anything really yucky. And this is a great hint for both people who live in suburbia and those who don't. If you have trash, something that is yucky, something that you know is going to reek in like 2 days. Now, when we lived in suburbia, our trash was picked up once a week. And if you did not want your kitchen to reek or your garbage can to be super attractive to raccoons, then the way you solve that problem is you save your old Ziplocs that are dirty. You wouldn't use them again. I don't normally rewash Ziplocs or anything like that, but I save those in a special pile. And when I run across a situation where I need to throw some sort of trash away that is really going to make everything stink in just 24 hours. For instance, you bought some chicken and you have the tray complete with the little absorptive mat that comes underneath it. If you will bag that in a Ziploc and then throw that into your garbage, like I say, these are not new Ziplocs, they're old Ziplocs, so I'm getting a little double use out of it, but that will totally reduce the smell factor for your garbage. For us, there is no trash pickup here. If you want to make arrangements, and you can, there's limited spaces available. It's like $75 a month to have one garbage can picked up once a month, 3 miles from here. We used to have access to a dumpster. And then the people who were using the dumpsters and the others who didn't want to pay for dumpsters and just kept throwing trash there blew that opportunity for all of us. So that means you have to haul it to the dump. Well, we don't go to the dump very often. I mean, it's, I don't know how many miles it is, 30 miles?
30 miles one way.
Yeah, 30 miles one way to the dump. So you're not in a hot hurry to run off to the dump all the time. And you wind up keeping it. So we keep our burnables separate from our only to the dump things. We recycle our glass. We can't recycle plastic here. We could other places we've lived, but we can't recycle plastic here. So, we do what we can to recycle, but it really reduces the stink factor if you bag your trash that way. And by throwing anything goopy like this into the compost pile means I don't have to, that thing where you take a garbage bag out of the garbage can and in the kitchen and it's dripping. So that is one of my least favorite things on the planet. I'm setting aside a couple of tomatoes here that are just too good to turn into tomato sauce. Now this is an interesting tomato. It did not ripen properly. The bottom of it's fine, top of it's not, so I'm cutting off the top of it. And I'm going to throw away the top, but the bottom is going to all become sauce because it smells great. And I run on smell when it comes to things like tomatoes. If I have a doubt about a smell, then I'll taste it. But I've been sniffing tomatoes long enough that I have a pretty good sense for what the sauce is going to come out to be. All right, so I have a little collection of tomatoes over there. That one's not ripe. This is my tray that I ripen tomatoes on. It's just a simple baking tray, but it means that if a tomato does somehow spoil and I don't notice it, I don't wind up with gooey tomato sauce running around the kitchen. It stays in the tray. And in case you're wondering, you see me scrape on this, I just washed this before I went to use it, so it's been freshly laundered this morning with soap and hot water. And it is stainless steel, so I'm not doing any kind of cross-contamination. I wouldn't be super concerned, even if it wasn't perfectly clean, because this is all going to be boiled, but I still like to do a little bit better job than that. And anytime I have doubts about a tomato, like, gee, that's a slightly soft spot, is it funky inside, I'll always cut it open. Because I know they don't do that when they make commercial tomato sauce, but one of the purposes of making your own tomato sauce, other than using the tomatoes you've grown yourself and therefore knowing exactly how the tomatoes were handled, is the fact that I'd like it to be just a little bit nicer. Both Henry and I are sensitive to unripe tomatoes. Even a semi-ripe tomato here is going to be better than most of what we can get from a can or a jar. And a lot of people who have indigestion for tomatoes, yeah, that's what it is. It's because there's too many unripe tomatoes in your tomato sauce. And Henry's squeaking over there, opening up a cooler. Okay, just bring a tomato. Now this is what the mess looks like when I get it. Squishy tomatoes. These are mostly paste tomatoes. But I'm going to look them over. I'm going to check the outside for blemishes. I'm going to probably take off the very tops. And then I'll slice them lengthwise. Now, I do wind up with some juice loss from this. Some of these tomato skins are quite tough. And I'm going to peel some of this stuff out. This has got a core that is kind of obnoxious. That will tend to clog up the tomato mushing machine that we use. I don't even like the way this tomato looks. But we'll see. It could just be one of those things where it's cracked. Smells fine. So the ugly tomato skin on the outside is because it was one of those things that had cracked from moisture changes. And this does take a while. It's the perfect opportunity to put on some good tunes in your ear things and just go with it. I'm going to try and see what I can do different again next year. I really don't want as many tomato plants as we had this year. Next year. I had not planned to grow that many. I was gifted a stack, and I have a hard time turning down gifts of tomato plants and other plants, but I need to next year because I want to do my production area differently, and if I'm going to do that, there's got to be more space. I want to be able to move the tomato plants farther, the hydroponic tomato plants farther away from the wall, so that this is why I chose a cutting board with a meat ridge around it. That's what I always think of those as being meat ridges. Now, in this case, the tomato skin just peeled right off, so I'm just going to take it off. It just leaves, there's no meat on the inside of it. That means that there'll be one less thing to get stuck in the tomato processor. Okay, so one of the things I see people do all the time on the internet is you want to peel your tomatoes, so you dip them in boiling water and then you dump them in cold water, and that will make the skins come off easily. And I have done that. I did that when I was very first married and first learning to make tomato sauce. In my old age, I prefer to work as little as possible while achieving good results. So, a wonderful trick. If you are not able to instantly process your tomatoes and you're throwing them in the freezer, that's what they'll look like when they come out of the freezer, okay? Now, I'm using a cutting board that has a an edge on the edge to keep, and it's still going to make a mess. But there goes my skin. There goes the top of the tomato. If I have a core problem, which I do on some of these tomatoes, I can choose to take it out right now. There's no burned fingers, there's no ice water, there's no nothing. And that tomato is 100% ready to go into our processing machine to turn it into tomato sauce. Now, if you're doing something like chopped tomatoes or something, this is not going to work as well because you'll have a squishy tomato product. But that was a paste tomato. Let's see if I can find a regular tomato in my bucket of stuff here. There's a regular tomato. Now this one's got a little scarring because it was one of those tomatoes that had split in the greenhouse because of a lack of water consistency. But that part of the tomato is 100% ready to go right now. No boiling water, no heating up your kitchen. Save your heating up your kitchen for when you're actually making the sauce. It's a great cheat. And the less I have to heat my kitchen up, especially in the summer, the better I like it. Hope that you find this trick helpful. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell because obviously we're doing tons. So until next time, bye. Oh, and keep on brainstorming because obviously we do.